Every day, you essentially pay your dues by doing the harder thing when it's the right thing to do.
We kind of finished the season in June-ish. So then we'll just do some light stuff for a couple of weeks. And then it kind of works that we have 2 weeks off at the end of June, beginning of July. So that's like extra time for them just to recover. And then we come back in and we start it kind of light, just, general stuff, hypertrophy. And we'll do that for the first kind of 6-8 weeks of summer just to get them back in it. And then this year we've had 2 different strength cycles. So we did 6 week, I think, like August, September-ish. And then we're just finishing up a second one now. We had a week in the middle where we just had a little like deload just to recover a little. And then the end of this week, Sunday, we're starting power. So we got a 6-week power cycle that will take us to Christmas time-ish. Because our season is a bit later than your guys over there, down there. Like we have a competition at the beginning of December, but it's like the first one of the season. So it's,
Got it.
No, nothing big. It is trials to a competition, which kind of sucks. But it is what it is. And then after that, we'll do some kind of like circuit, just, building a base ready for routines. And then in season, I've made like mobility sheets, we call them. So we have got like different body parts. So it's like shoulder, thoracic, and then there's 2 giant sets within it. Like the first giant set is a rolling, stretch, and a strength. And then there's like a second giant set with 3 similar things. So yeah, we got 4 different sheets, different body parts. Summer gymnastics, like handstand, splits, modeling off your stuff for the handstand and the splits, and that kind of mobility circuit. And that's if they choose not to condition on a day because they're too sore, that's what they'll do. Just kind of like a bit of recovery mobility. So yeah, for the 4 months that they're in season, we generally just do that to keep their bodies happy, because obviously they're getting enough load in routines and gymnastic stuff, so we don't want to overload them. We're just in a hypertrophy. I'll do like a warm-up of 5 things that are just like an unweighted version of what they're going to do in their workout, just to get their body and their mind into it. And then I'll do like a main lift, so compound, a deadlift, a goblet squat probably for hypertrophy, not back squat, a hip thrust, a rear foot elevated split squat. Like they're the 4 go-tos that we'd start with. And then I'm going to superset that with something. It's usually a core something, just to get, the most bang for our buck. And it also helps equipment-wise if we superset, because then we can just, pair up. And then the second thing within that workout would be some kind of upper body thing. So, either vertical, horizontal pressing or a pulling. And all of that stuff, other than pull-ups, we do single arm just to, keep everything balanced. And again, I will pair that up with something. Sometimes it's like a hip accessory. So some kind of like glute thing just to, keep that area happy. And then we have a third set of usually 3 that are just purely accessories. So it depends what we've done in the upper body, but it would be like if we've done a pushing, we'll do some kind of pulling accessory. So like a plank band row or and then vice versa. Like we do like a lot of dumbbell windmills or half Turkish get-ups, and then some kind of like dumbbell core, so like a suitcase carry or a farmer's carry. And we'll do like a bit of calf in there too, so some kind of like single leg calf raise, or just to keep everything happy. For us, it kind of looks like the level 2, so 6, 7, they all do everything without weights for a year, just to dial in the movement patterns so they become comfortable with them. And then we've got some like 8-year-old level 3s. They're using 5 8-pounders, nothing crazy. Just again, getting that movement pattern ready and dialed in and safe.
Yep.
And then from that point, 9, 10, that's when we'll start like
Yep.
loading them up again, as long as technique stays okay.
Yep.
Like as soon as things start looking wobbly or not correct, they drop down. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's good to mention
But
too that like people are concerned about growth plates, but there's actually no
mhm,
research that's contraindicated for that kind of stuff. So like if you're doing it with
mhm,
proper technique, proper programming, you've had 2 years to learn movement patterns and you're building it correctly, it's actually one of the best things that young kids can
mhm.
do pending
So
age.
instead of, so on Sunday, we're starting our power and we'll still do those compound lifts, but instead of pairing them with like a core or something, I'm going for power. So we're going to like try the contrast power.
Yep.
So like, for example, with our deadlift, it's still only going to be 3 sets of 3, but we're pairing it with 3 sets of 6 continuous
Yep.
long jumps, right?
Yep.
So it's just trying to get that fast twitch going. Same with a squat, still going to be the same reps, just 3 sets paired with a seated box jump. So
Mhm.
going from sitting on a low box to jumping up to a high box. And same rear foot elevated split squats. We're going to do it goblet like we do normally, but then we're going to dump the dumbbell and go for the jumps. And last, hip thrusts. So we're going to do hip thrust and we're pairing it with like a med ball overhead toss just to get
Nice.
that kind of like hip extension with the shoulder, that I love that for gymnastics because it's
Yeah.
so, it's so transferable that it's a good. Yeah.
Yeah. And with the thought process there being, which I think is a value add, right? Which is like you can see or reverse med ball throw kind of looks like a, takeoff off floor or, squatting looks like landing. But also too, is that there's a huge value in
Mhm.
trying to allow someone to express their power in a very, very safe way, which is like throw this ball as hard as you
Yep.
can or jump as high as you can. It's very different than being like tumble as hard as you can, right? Like that's very
Yeah.
stressful sometimes to have someone to do. So this is an opportunity to really tap into like the just do it really hard. You're going to be safe. You know what I mean? There's two aspects to it. One is that when you actually work with athletes who are intentionally trying to gain mass, so like Olympic lifters, power lifters, like we have friends of ours that are literally like, I need to put 10 pounds on to move this kilo faster or more aggressively. And you actually look at their training schedule, it's like, good God, like you're squatting 4 days per week. You're eating a ridiculous amount of calorie surplus. You're training close to failure with just insane weights. Like obviously you could go to failure in a different way, but I feel like what you actually have to do to get that much of excessive mass fast is unbelievably challenging. So there's one aspect to it. And the second piece of it too, is that when you, like you noted too, is when you look at the research on what truly causes hypertrophy, it's often very like lower rep with extremely high repetitions close to failure. And a lot of traditional gymnastic strength training is that. Like think about how many squat jumps that some kids do, right? Squats and squat jumps and resi jumps and block jumps, like leg lifts, 500 leg lifts, rope climbs, like pull-ups, like a lot of what you fear as a traditional method is actually probably creating that hypertrophy. And it's like, oh, it's like I had to shoot myself in the foot a little bit when I learned that. I was like, oh my God, the programs that I am doing, I'm avoiding weights because I'm worried it's going to make these athletes get excessively bulky. But then when I look at my 4 sets of 25 squat jumps and my 4 sets of 40 calf raises and my 4 sets of 25 leg lifts, this is training close to failure in his hypertrophy. Like I'm actually creating that.
Yeah. And I think that's just knowledge too, right? Like
Right.
people don't know that. So why would they think any different? Like everybody, not everybody, but many people think lifting weights, you're just a bodybuilder or, like there's that kind of narrow mindset, not the other benefits that it can allow for, especially in gymnastics. Like,
yeah. And also too on that wavelength, which is again, what TikTok influencers and, magazines show you versus what sports performance is. And we're constantly having this educational conversation with the gymnasts that come to our facility, which is like, okay, well, sports performance is completely different than bodybuilding or CrossFit or powerlifting, which is fine in their own right. But then even within that subset, like what a baseball player does or a lacrosse player does is completely different than what we ask our gymnasts to do. And then within that, like there's a gymnast program is highly individualized based on their injuries, based on their goals, based on their level. So like if you can find great sports performance strength coaches who understand this, like what actually shows up on paper and in a lift is completely different than what I think a lot of people's misunderstanding of that is. You know what I mean? Split squats and step ups and that kind of stuff.